Hello. Today, we'll delve into the character of Navi. This is a detailed guide on the Geo Claymore user from Fontaine. Grab some tea, get comfortable, and let's begin. In my blog on Boosty, Dotupnoi by this QR code, you will learn about all the news from the world of Genshin. About announcements of new characters, locations, bosses, and much more. Navia can be knocked out from the character event prayer in first half updates 4.3. Banner validity period, from 2020-23 by January 9, 2024 years. When repeated copies are dropped, constellations are revealed. In order not to miss Navia's rerun, stay tuned for updates banner schedules. Navia characteristics. What increases with elevation? The main characteristic of Navia is critical damage, which increases with character leveling. In addition, the base values of health, HP, attack power, and defense increase. The exact indicators are shown in the table. Navia is a damage dealer who specializes in dealing constant geo damage. By using elemental skill, it shoots bullets, the damage of which depends on the number of crystal reaction fragments collected. Also, the skill, due to its passive talent, grants normal attacks by infusion. Explosion of the elements, periodic area damage. Next, we'll take a closer look at how all of Navia's active abilities work and in what order they should be upgraded. In addition, we will separately analyze the constellations, separately highlighting the most remarkable ones from the point of view of revealing the character's potential. Basic skills, active skills, direct rejection, normal/charged/fall attack, normal attack, makes up to 4 hits with a claymore. Charged attack, performs a spinning attack on nearby enemies, gradually draining stamina. At the end he carries out an additional blow. Attack in the fall, falls to the ground, hitting all enemies along the way. After landing, it deals area damage. Ceremonial Crystal Barrage, elemental skill, crystal shrapnel duration, 300 seconds. Cooldown time, 9 seconds. Number of charges, 2. When a party member picks up an elemental shard created by reaction crystal, Navia gains 1 charge crystal shrapnel, maximum 6 charges. When receiving new shrapnel, the duration of the current one is reset. Consumes all available crystal shrapnel and fires multiple crystal bullets of Rosala, which cause geo damage. The number of bullets depends on the charges, with consumption 0/1/2/3 charges and more are fired 5/7/9/11 bullets respectively. The more Rosala's crystal bullets hit one enemy, the more damage he receives. If all bullets hit, they deal 200% of the original damage. If more than 3 charges of crystal shrapnel are consumed, each additional charge increases the shot's damage by an additional 15%. Long press enters targeting mode, picking up elemental shards created by crystal's reaction. After stopping the long press, the same Rosala crystal bullets fly out as when pressing quickly. Archie, Uzia, when Navia fires Rosal crystal bullets, the turbulent blade is summoned every 7 seconds and deals geo damage to Usia. Like a greeting from clear skies, explosion of the elements, duration, 12 seconds. Cooldown time, 15 seconds. Energy consumption, 60 units. Summons a magnificent golden rose salute that deals geo damage in an area and then provides fire support for 12 seconds, periodically attacking nearby enemies. When hitting enemies, cannon shots grant Navia 1 charge of crystal shrapnel. The effect occurs once every 1 second. The order of leveling talents for the main DD role: elemental skill, E, greater than or equal to elemental burst, Q, greater than or equal to normal attacks. It is advisable to upgrade all of Navia's skills in an even manner. If resources are insufficient, we recommend following the following sequence. 1. Elemental skill, the main source of damage, with high multipliers and fast reloading. For this reason it is a priority. 2. Explosion of the elements, an additional method of dealing damage, but in terms of numbers it is slightly inferior to the skill. Ultimate also helps gain charges. 3. Normal attacks are no less important, since the passive skill, Unknown Channels of Circulation, grants them an infusion after using an elemental skill. For the role of sub-DD, Elemental Burst, Q, greater than or equal to Elemental Skill, E, normal attacks in the sub-dead position, President Spina di Rosala adheres to rapid rotation, so the priority of leveling up abilities changes slightly. 1. Explosion of the Elements. If in the previous case the ULT mainly needed Geo status and the accumulation of charges, then here the damage becomes no less important, since it works outside the battlefield. 2. Elemental Skill. This is still the character's strongest button, so if possible it's worth leveling it up in parallel with your ultimate 3. Normal attacks are practically not used, so they can be left at levels 1 to 6. Passive skills. A complete list of all passive skills is presented in the table. 1. Talent. Unknown Circulation Channels. Within 4 seconds after using an elemental skill, normal, charged, and plunging attacks receive a Geo infusion that isn't cancelled by other infusions. Additionally, the damage of all attack types is increased by 40%. 2. Talent. Mutual Aid Network. For each Pyro/Electro/Cryo/Hydro character in the party, Navia's attack power increases by 20%. This effect can stack up to 2 times. 3. Talent. A carefully executed transaction increases the rewards of expeditions in Fontaine lasting 25 hours by 20%. Constellations. The table displays all of Navia's constellations. 1. Lady Distance Rule. When using an elemental skill, for each level of crystal shrapnel spent, Navia restores 3 units of energy, maximum 9 units, and reduces the cooldown of the elemental explosion by 1 second, maximum 3 seconds. 2. The Commander-in-Chief's Desire for Victory. Each level of crystal shrapnel spent when using an elemental skill increases her critical hit chance by 12%, maximum 36%. Additionally, when the skill hits, 1 elemental burst fire support appears near the position of the hit enemy. Each use of the skill can cause a maximum of 1 fire support. Fire support damage dealt this way is considered elemental explosion damage. 3. Broad Outlook of the Manager. Levels up Ceremonial Crystal Volley, elemental skill. Max level, 15. 4. Those who take an oath do not give up. When hit by a geo-elemental explosion, the resistance of the affected enemy is reduced by 20% for 8 seconds. 5. Negotiator's Inflexibility. Levels up like a greeting from clear skies, elemental explosion. Max level, 15. 6. Cherish the Innocent. If more than 3 charges of crystal shrapnel are consumed when using an elemental skill, then each additional charge increases critical hit damage by 45%. In this case, all charges expended after the 3rd are returned to Navia after using the skill. The best constellations of Navia, 1, 2, 6. First constellation helps restore energy faster and reduces the cooldown of elemental explosions. This does not have a direct effect on damage, but it reduces the energy requirement, practically guaranteeing a stable use of the ultimate. Second constellation increases critical chance. Hits L. Skill up to 36%, and also summons elemental explosion fire support with each use of the skill. C2 not only buffs the heroine's damage, but also makes it possible to deal additional damage. Sixth constellation increases electrical damage. Skill if more than 3 charges of crystal shrapnel are consumed. At the same time, all new consumed charges are returned to Navia. In terms of DPS increase, this is the strongest constellation. Separately, we note 4, which reduces the geo resistance of enemies after using L. Skill. This is a strong constellation, but its implementation largely depends on the situation. It is most effective in the Geo squad, where it will allow Navia to perform the function of a sub-DD, for example, for Ito or Ningguang. Advantages and disadvantages of Navia. Let us examine in detail what advantages and disadvantages the head of Spina di Rosala has. Advantages. 1. High attack power. One of the highest attack powers, reaching 352 units at level 90. This allows Navia to deal substantial damage with regular hits. 2. Effectiveness against elites and bosses. Navia is effective against elite opponents and bosses. The damage from the elemental skill, Rajala Crystal Bullets, increases the more it hits a single enemy. 3. Geo Damage Conversion. The passive talent, Unknown Circulation Channels, converts basic attacks into geo damage, which is not cancelled by other infusions. This enables Navia to synergize well with characters like Bennett C6. 4. Elemental Interaction. Navia interacts well with elements, increasing damage from the crystal reaction and providing a bonus to attack power for Pyro/Electro/Cryo/Hydro characters through the Mutual Aid Network talent. 5. Flexible Play Style. Navia has a flexible play style, capable of dealing damage with an elemental burst or actively participating in battles using skills and normal attacks with infusion. 6. Critical Damage Scaling. Navia's critical damage increases with elevation, allowing for a focus on critical chance when selecting artifacts and simplifying stat balancing. 7. Independence from constellations. Navia does not heavily depend on constellations. While constellations enhance the character, they do not introduce significant gameplay-altering mechanics. Disadvantages. 1. Low attack speed. Possession of a two-handed weapon leads to low attack speed. Base hits are part of the rotation due to infusion, but they may be slower. 2. Limitation against Monogeo packs. Navia struggles to reach potential Monogeo packs due to passive talent mechanics and elemental skills linked to other elements. C4 may alleviate this limitation. 3. Scaling from attack power. Navia's scaling is based on attack power rather than protection. This makes her less synergistic with Geo supports like Goro. 4. Inconsistent Elemental Explosion Hitbox. The Elemental Explosion hitbox is inconsistent, potentially missing some flying enemies or not hitting with damage/fire support shots. 5. Short-range Elemental Skill. The Elemental Skill, including a long press, has a short range, preventing attacks from a safe distance. 6. Team Utility Dependency. Navia, in a suboptimal position, only offers additional damage to the team. She lacks direct bonuses to allies, and the Geo reaction is considered one of the weakest. 7. Limited Solo Impact. Navia, when in a suboptimal position, may provide limited impact to the team as she does not offer substantial bonuses to allies independently. Upgrading Navia next, we look at what materials are needed to level up Navia to the maximum level, as well as components for increasing the level of talents. Elevation. To ascend Navia, you will need to collect the following resources: shards, fragments, pieces and gems. Topaz Prathiva, drop from bosses, Geo Hypostasis, Golden Wolf Leader, Ruined Serpent, Perpetual Mechanical Array, Experimental Field Generator, Primo Geovishap, Wolf Lord, Aztaha. They are also created in alchemy from nitrogen dust. Spare part of the wonderful mechanism, Capelius, material dropped after defeating the world boss Icewind Sweet. Source of the first dew, Fontaine's Curiosity. Foreign Sea Pearl, Foreign Sea Fragment, and Xenomorph Crystal are materials dropped from Enoridov Fontmare. 420,000 Mora and 421 Hero Experience. Talents. To upgrade Navia's talents, the following components are required: teachings, guidelines, and philosophy on equanimity, books of talents from the Dungeon of Mastery, Pale Forgotten Flower. Farmed on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. Foreign Sea Pearl, Foreign Sea Fragment, and Xenomorph Crystal are materials dropped from Enoridov Fontmare. Dark Silk Thread, weekly boss item The Devouring Narwhal. Crown of Insight, an item for pumping talents up to level 10. 1,653,000 Mora. Best Navia builds in Genshin Impact. Navia specializes in dealing constant geo damage, which is boosted by creating elemental shards using the crystallize reaction. Mainly takes a position main DD, since it needs other elements to strengthen itself and causes significant damage. President Spina D. Rossel can also be used as a sub-debtor, but this will only affect the time spent on the battlefield. In any case, the main task when creating a build is increased combat performance. In the following paragraphs we will look in more detail at how to assemble Navia in Genshin Impact. Recommended characteristic values. Navia's build is based on the selection of the following stats, ATK. The main characteristic on which all the heroine's abilities scale, depend. This is the main indicator that should be emphasized. Crit. Damage/crit chance hits. An additional way to increase damage dealt from skills and regular attacks. Energy recovery. Although the elemental explosion is not very expensive, 60 units, the stat is not superfluous, especially in the absence of a second Geo character. Elemental damage. Since the heroine deals elemental damage with all skills, this will also affect the final damage characteristics that are recommended to look for in artifacts. Flower of Life, main characteristic, HP, permanent, additional stats, crit chance, crit damage, ATK, energy recovery. Feather of Death, main characteristic, attack power, permanent, additional stats, crit chance, crit damage, ATK, energy recovery. Sands of Time, main characteristic, ATK, additional stats, crit chance, crit damage, energy recovery %, elemental mastery. Goblet of Eonatham, main characteristic, Geo damage bonus, additional stats, crit chance, crit damage, ATK, energy recovery. Circlet of Logos, main characteristic, crit chance, additional stats, crit damage, ATK, energy recovery. Elemental mastery. Crown of Insight, main characteristic, crit damage, additional stats, crit damage/crit chance, ATK, energy recovery. Elemental mastery. These recommended characteristics and additional stats aim to optimize Navia's performance and enhance her overall capabilities in battles. The optimal final values of stats that it is desirable to have on a character, ATK, from 1700 units. Crit chance. Crit damage, ratio 1:2, for example, 60% crit chance accounts for 120% crit damage. If the CS exceeds 80%, you can place more emphasis on critical damage. Energy recovery, from 140 to 160%, without Geo ally, from 120 to 140%, with Geo ally. Best weapon. Navia's weapons should provide increased attack power, crit damage/crit chance hits and damage dealt. Verdict, Navia's signature weapon. It fully matches her playstyle and gives the necessary buffs, increases attack power, crit, elemental skill chance and damage, which is the main source of DPS. The main condition for the Claymore to work is to collect fragments of the crystal reaction. Weapons from Battle Pass with increasing crit chance and damage dealt. Although the heroine is not always on the field, the Claymore is still a decent option and the strongest among epic swords even at R1, R4. Since Navia plays from the crystal reaction, she will receive damage infrequently, which will allow her to implement a passive buff. Gives a huge increase in attack power due to a high base, main stat and passive. To realize all the bonuses, it is enough to be under a shield, for example, from the crystal reaction, and also to attack opponents. Considering that the boost does not fade when switching between heroes, the Claymore is suitable for both quick and long-term rotation. Sword from a standard banner. Provides a significant increase in attack power. It is inferior to the Unforged by 3 to 4% under equal conditions, but its passive effect is a little more difficult to implement. You need to deal damage to an enemy with HP less than 30%, which is more situational than having a shield, which is almost always present on Navia. An equally worthy choice among the legendary two-handed weapons, increases crit chance, attack power. And if the first part of the passive effect is activated without any problems, since it is enough to use L skill, then the second half rarely works due to the specifics of the gameplay, which is tied to the game from the crystal reaction, that is, the creation of a shield. Another sword from the standard prayer. Like Navia's signal, it has a high base, which has a positive effect on DPS. At the same time, it increases recovery. Energy, helping to charge the ultimate faster, and all the damage done. An additional source of damage is the intangible blade, which appears after activating an elemental explosion or hitting with basic pokes. Weapons received for the event in patch 4.3. provides energy recovery and attack power. At the same time, with full awakening and all stacks of the passive effect, it rises to the top 5 thanks to a huge increase in attack. At the same time, the plus and minus is the ability to obtain and awaken two-handed to the maximum during the event. If you have just started your journey and do not have any weapons, you can equip the Negotiation Club, which, thanks to its 3-star rarity, very often falls out of banners. Like the prototype, it is an excellent gun for beginners. It provides the character with attack power and makes it possible to inflict additional damage. Damage from basic hits. Best artifacts like weapons. Navia's artifacts should increase her attack power, crits, and elemental damage. The table below discusses all the sets and combinations of sets that are suitable for the heroine. Signature set of artifacts for Navia. Increases attack power and elemental damage, Geo. The 4-piece effect triggers on its own during the rotation process. President Spina di Rosala deals damage with an elemental skill, and also spends most of the time under a shield from the crystal reaction, receiving plus 50% damage to his element. If you don't have a full set of Echoes of Voices in the Night Forest, you can combine artifacts for attack power, which also includes Echo, Geo damage, or an elemental skill bonus. The most versatile and powerful combination is 2 parts per attack power plus 2 parts for Geo damage. Since Navia's skill deals most of the damage, there is a full set of the Golden Troop, which provides a 45% buff to Ishki's damage. The only thing is that the heroine cannot use the second part of the passive, since her skill does not deal damage outside the battlefield. But even in this case, the set works well on it, especially if there are good pieces. A good set for beginners. Increases attack power, which affects all of the character's abilities, as well as overall damage against enemies if their health has dropped to half or less. The set can be used until the required sets are obtained. An alternative starting set for increasing the damage of an elemental skill, E. In addition to the main boost, the artifact rolls back the cooldown time of the skill. When the boss Spina di Rosala plays in a team with Farina, she also implements sets Shadow Court Hunter Vermilion hereafter. This becomes possible due to the fact that Hydro Archon uses an elemental skill to remove characters' HP, helping to activate passive bonuses. If you use Navia as a sub-DD and want to focus on team support, rather than her own damage, you can equip the following sets. A set that increases the elemental damage of allies. To buff teammates, you need to create a reaction shard with Geo with the element that requires the bonus. Pick him up as Navia, and then switch to the hero of this element and attack. Another support set. Aimed at increasing the attack power of allies when using Navia's ultimate. Its only downside is that the elemental explosion rolls back for 3 seconds. Longer than the passive effect of the set, which means there will be some downtime. Squads for Navia. When building Navia's team, it's worth considering that she synergizes best with characters who interact with Geo, Pyro, Electro, Hydro Cryo. This combination will allow you to deal more damage not only with an elemental skill thanks to the fragments from the crystal reaction, but also due to the passive talent, Network of Mutual Aid, which increases the attack power in the presence of allies of the elements in question. Although Navia prefers to play in the position main DD, her playstyle involves switching between squad members and a revolver playstyle. In other words, she is not a classic main DD who needs to spend a lot of time on the battlefield, which allows her to be used in conjunction with other damage dealers. In this case, the head of Spina di Rosala is not so much a support as alternative source of damage. Best characters. The following are the heroes who can be part of Navia's squad. They are all assigned roles. Sub-DD characters that deal additional damage outside of the battlefield. Hydro Applicator. Thanks to the explosion of the element, which deals damage together with the active character, Navia will help create a crystal reaction. Like Yelan, he deals Hydro with his ultimate. In addition, the skill increases interruption resistance and heals a little. Buffs all elemental explosion damage. Helps activate a passive effect Hunter of the Twilight Court using the skill. Distracts enemies with a skill, and with an explosion of elements, buffs all damage caused due to the Omen effect. With an elemental burst, it deals damage from the pocket, helping to create elemental cryo shards. Can attack with charged shots. Ulta creates ice flows around itself and the active character, causing cryo damage to nearby enemies. Has a fast ability recharge. An elemental explosion causes periodic damage and increases crit chance. This skill creates a fiery prison where enemies receive damage. Also, during its existence, part of the damage received by allies is transferred to D-High. All active skills deal damage outside the battlefield, which allows Navia to effectively use her pyro status to create fragments. Using an elemental skill, conducts joint electro attacks with an active character. Ulta pumps up energy. Places totems that deal damage to nearby enemies. Ultimate, instant burst damage in an area. An excellent subdeader with fast reload time on skills and high damage outside the battlefield. With an elemental explosion, it creates electrical circuits that, when used with a normal or charged attack, cause damage to the enemy. Helps create even more elemental shards with a skill and restore energy faster due to mastery of the same element. Although Dendro does not interact with Geo, Nahida is useful for some teams by increasing reaction damage. Supports support characters that provide healing, protection and buffs. Increases attack power and heals with an elemental explosion. At the same time, it does not harm its C6, since the infusion of Navia is not disrupted. Helps activate the sword's passive effect Talking Mace. Places a shield on the active squad member. At C6 it can increase the damage of all types of attacks by 15%. Heals with his ultimate when an ally uses normal attacks. This skill increases attack speed. Provides the team with a fairly strong shield. Deals damage outside the battlefield. At C4, it enhances normal and charged attacks. Restores health in the area of effect of the ultimate ability. Creates a medium strength shield. Healer and cryo applicator. If he is in a squad with heroes from Fontaine, he receives a bonus to healing. Has both periodic and instant healing. The skill imposes hydro status, allowing you to activate a passive Talking Mace. Gives a lot of healing, as well as hydro status due to the elemental skill. She can deal good damage with her ult herself. Increases the elemental damage of normal attacks with an elemental burst. When opened, C6 deals hydro damage outside the battlefield. Periodically heals with a skill, casting it on an active ally. At the same time, nearby enemies receive electro damage. Heals with an explosion of elements. Restores energy. Like Bennett and Barbara, imposes email status on an ally, which allows you to use Politza. Universal Geo Battery. Can create a fairly strong shield, heal and at the same time deal damage. Places a strong shield and reduces enemy resistance in a small area. Increases the damage of normal attacks using an elemental burst. At C6 it gives a 12% bonus to attack speed. The ultimate instantly heals the entire squad, and then periodically restores HP in the area of effect of the ability. Top teams. Let's look at Navia's best units, depending on her role in the group. Teams with Navia main DD units in which the head of Spina di Rosala is the main source of damage and spends more time on the field than other allies. Squad with Pyro and Hydro characters. Bennett/Jin and Navia ult first, then Hydro characters, as well as Dihaya or Xiangling, use abilities from the pocket, while collecting fragments at the same time. At the end, Navia comes out again, dealing increased L damage. Skill. Team with Pyro, Cryo and Geo. As in the previous case, Navia is the first to enter the battlefield and must activate an elemental explosion. The rest of the heroes do the same. Albedo/Yunjin helps create more shards and restore energy faster. Team with Electro and Hydro, supported by Nahida. Max. The increase in attack power from Navia's passive comes from two types of elements. Navia increases reaction damage and also causes a stimulate effect and interacting with Electro. On Beidou, it is desirable to have 190 to 200% energy recovery. A squad with the reinforcement of Navia. Furina deals hydro damage and increases damage. Kandakia buffs the damage of Navia's regular attacks while infused, but with C6 she can deal additional damage. Damage outside the battlefield. Cookie's Shinobu/Dory do healing and can apply Electro status. Squad through reaction charged. Electro characters attack opponents and inflict elemental status from the pocket during Navia's ult, after which the boss Spina di Rosala uses the skill and normal attacks. Kokomi or Barbara help Hydro with effects and healing. Teams with Navia sub-DD squads in which the heroine shares her time in the arena with another damage dealer, helping with additional damage out of pocket. Tartaglia/Ayato deal damage under Yunjin's buff, Navia's ultimate and Xiangling, picking up fragments. Ayato can also be a secondary damage dealer due to his elemental burst, which works outside the battlefield and is useful when the head of Spina di Rosala hits with an elemental skill. A squad with pyro damage dealers. Thanks to Navia's ultimate ability, which creates fragments, and Zhongli/Layla's shield, you can abandon the healer, since the damage will practically not pass through to the heroes. The synergy is especially good with Yuamiya, who can provide pyro with status out of the pocket with her elemental burst. Let's summarize. Navia is a geo damage dealer whose skill set is based on the use of shards created by Crystal's reaction. Each time one of the squad members picks them up, Navia receives charges that elemental skill converts into bullets that deal high damage. When holding the skill, she goes into aiming mode and collects fragments on the battlefield. That's it for me. Subscribe, don't forget about my useful blog on Boosty. See you soon.